because there's this line, that's out there, like for women, like you don't want to marry his potential or go after someone's potential. So how does that sort of rub against that? Like, how do you know if you're just sort of wishful thinking with this potential and the person that's actually right in front of you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to me, what I interpret that quote as to mean is
Patrice's playlist, well, it's good listening.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited for you to get into this conversation with me and my new friend, licensed therapist, Jason VanRuler, who is the author of this book called Get Past Your Past. I have a link to his book in the show notes. I did this interview with him right after, it was the morning after I had gotten triggered by seeing something the night before. And if you've been following a little bit of my dating and singleness journey, my walk of faith, whether you're new to my Patreon, my private Patreon group, or you've been reading my blogs over the last decade, I'm pretty transparent, I'm pretty open, and in the hopes that number one, someone out there, maybe it's you, doesn't feel quite as alone. And also that you and I can both glean some wisdom from people that have gone before us or have just wisdom in areas that we are not completely skilled at. And there's someone else that says, I believe like Annie F. Downs, who's an incredible podcaster as well, talks about dating is a skill set that we have to learn. And I'm kind of like side eyes about it sometimes, kind of like, again, why didn't this man just get dropped? I don't have to make a decision. Jesus, you decide for me, all these things. However, there's been a grace where the Lord's like, actually, this is going to be your walk of faith in your romance story and your love story on your road to being married, which is one of the main desires of my heart, and something that I will continue to hope for until like the Lord tells me otherwise, or until I die, or until I get married. Listen. Also, full disclaimer, and I told Jason this in the conversation, I was really trying to not use our time as like a personal therapy session. However, there were moments of it where I just felt really refreshed, like I would in sort of one of my own counseling sessions with my own counselor, who is not Jason, by the way, another lovely person and human. But there were so many nuggets, wisdom nuggets that he dropped in this conversation. Like, please have your notes app out or your journal if you're like me, like pen to paper. I'm so big on that. That's just my jam. It's very therapeutic. I almost want to guarantee there's one thing from this conversation that's going to hit your heart and you're just going to be like, wow, wow, God, wow, that was for me. I felt that multiple times. I was like, oh, 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 in this conversation. If you are curious about relationships, love listening and learning and growing in regards to relationships, dating, even if you've never dated before, this conversation is still for you. Even if you've been married, divorced, widowed, this conversation is for you. So I don't know if you're like me. I just love listening to these types of conversations that help us grow, help us to love better, to live life and life more abundantly, like with wisdom. And I'm just like, in my own quiet times with God in the last few weeks, I've just been encouraged, invited, and challenged. Like, oh, we don't just capture love from God like one time. We get to actually grow in love. And I pray that by the end of this conversation, you will feel compelled, if not already. I think that's what kind of led you here to listen to this conversation, but that you would be compelled even more to grow in love and maybe have some real definitions or an inkling of where you're going to lean that curiosity, that compelling towards, like what that will look like for you. I'd love to hear back from you. You can find me on Instagram, especially when I'm not on like a full on social media sabbatical and fast, which usually happens towards the end of the year for a couple slash maybe 3 months or more. Um, but Together Good Co. is where I do all of the things, all of my faith, work, updates, community, all my creative endeavors are it's under the umbrella of Together Good Co. It's called Together Good on purpose, kind of inspired by Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. But then, now I'm also thinking like, and not just thinking, but knowing how important community is, finding your tribe, your squad, your people. And like when we go together, we go further. There's that one African proverb, like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. And I just feel like we are meant to go further together. And so hopefully in this space, there's something in this conversation that propels you in love and relationships, because that's just like one of my passions. We always talk about that here in this podcast. Um, and then also, I'm always trying to widen my circle because I'm just like, my husband is alive on the planet somewhere. My future husband is alive somewhere on the planet. And I think he's got to be like now just 2 degrees away because I'm out here meeting almost every Christian guy that I admire and respect. That's just doing some incredible work in the world and for their own local and sometimes global community. And I'm just like, I could just be one of your bros away. Like, I'm just saying, or future husband, if you're listening to this conversation at Together Good Co. I mean, you can slide into those DMs or a comment. Don't be creepy though. Okay. All right. So here, let's get into this conversation. Enjoy. Have your notepad out. Let's do it with Jason Van Ruler. Oh my goodness. Okay. So like I was saying right before, I'm kind of coming in hot. I called myself healing from this short-term dating experience. I don't even know what to call it. Like we had these 3 sort of magical dates. It was like a whirlwind, like right after Christmas and New Year's. And then he broke my heart. We won't get into that full backstory, but I was like, January was the month of grieving and just, talking to my counselor, found a beautiful spiritual director, had some really safe spaces to process. And I just got back on the dating apps again. I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a try again. And just last night, I see him, the
Mm.
guy that broke my heart, which is inevitable because I just feel like number one, that's my life. But also these dating apps, I feel like kind of rotate a lot of times some of the same people in that. And it makes me curious, Jason, like when do we know? Like I didn't get super triggered. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Afterwards, I did have a moment where I was just like, oh man, this is okay. I don't know if I'm fully healed. And so my question is like, how do we know, like, as we're out here in the dating world, like, how do we know if we're healed, if we're really ready? Like, I feel like I'm doing all the necessary things, but what are some like telling signs that someone is ready to date, in a healthy way?
Yeah. Well, that's you must think highly of me. That's a great question. That's a big question. So, well, we'll see. Here's what I start with is what is healing really? So when
Ooh,
you think about healing, what does that mean to be healed?
yeah.
If you were healed, would it mean that you'd see his photo and not feel anything? Because that
Mm,
actually doesn't sound healed to me,
okay.
right? That just sounds like
Yeah.
being numb.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
sometimes we have to say like, well, how are we even defining healing in the first place?
Oof.
And is healing the absence of feeling? Because if that's what it
Ooh.
is, it's actually not healthy. That's not
Hmm.
healing in my book. That's just compartmentalization or it's avoidance. And so I go, okay, well, if I really cared about somebody and it ended badly,
Yeah.
I'll probably always feel something. Right. And that's
Hmm.
that's something to grieve is like, okay, well, now I got to carry that around. So I'll probably
Yeah.
always feel something. But I
Hmm.
think healing means we see ourselves in that relationship differently.
Ooh,
right?
okay.
And so
Yeah.
we see ourselves in that relationship as I was a person who went all in and it
Yeah.
didn't work, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe the part where we're unhealed is I was all in and they didn't do their end, or I was
Mm.
all in and I wasn't good enough, or I was
Yeah.
all in.
Yeah.
It's really healing is about changing our relationship to the situation more
Okay.
than it is to changing how we feel.
That's so good. I'm just thinking about like Christian dating as a whole for me. So I'm a Christian. I grew up in the I kiss dating goodbye era back
Mm.
in the day. And so I feel like so many of my peers and many that get a chance to listen to this podcast and this conversation are in that space. They're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that just feel really awkward when it comes to dating, as a Christian. And I'm curious, like, what do you see specifically in circles of faith, like some of the hangups for Christian men and Christian women going into dating that we might be able to do like shift maybe our mindset or go in just a little bit healthier, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure. And so as a person who's a Christian too, and that is really the orientation that I base everything off of, um, I get it,
Yeah,
and I would
yeah,
say dating was hard for me even before I was a Christian. And then when I
yeah,
became a
yeah,
Christian, it didn't make it easier, right? It
yeah,
wasn't like,
yeah,
oh, great, I've arrived. I think some of the challenges that the church is awesome at telling you what not to do,
yeah,
but they sometimes forget to tell you what to do instead. And so when it comes to dating, I think we could all pretty be united in what we're not supposed to do that the
yeah,
church has told us.
yeah,
But what are we supposed to do?
yeah.
And so if we don't know, what we do is we sort of make up the perfect scenario. And if we're Christians, we actually know and we have proof of what perfect love is. And so what we do is we say, well, I know what I'm not supposed to do. I don't know what to do, but I know of some of the examples I have. And so my guess is it's something like that.
hmm Yeah.
No pressure, right? My guess is it's something like that. No
High
pressure.
stakes, high
Yeah.
stakes.
Yeah.
Ah,
And so
yes.
I'm going to just go in with all the expectations and pressure in the world and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Right. And so that kind of goes one of two ways. Either the other people aren't good enough or you're not good enough. Or if you're
Mhm.
lucky, both, right? You're like, I'm not good enough and they're not good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what happens is it's like we find ourselves pursuing this idyllic relationship that really isn't even possible, and especially not possible initially, because people have to grow to have that sort of love between each other. It doesn't happen immediately. And
Mm,
so what we do is we sort of aim a little too high a lot of the
yeah.
times, and we
Yeah.
find ourselves disappointed before we even get
Oof.
started.
Oh, yeah. Wow. When you said that word grow, like growing in love, like I feel like I don't get to hear that enough just in relationships because we're so sold on, sort of the immediate connection, immediate chemistry, all of these other things. But I love sort of you highlighting this growing in love. Um, okay, I know we just came in hot because again, that's on my heart. I might start crying in this conversation. I don't know. I really
Well,
just,
well, let
I'm
me
sure.
stop you real quick because I just want
Yeah.
to tell you one thing. It's okay too to be slow in developing intimacy. So that's
Okay.
the so
Yeah.
some people maybe start out and they're exactly who you want them to be and it's amazing. I don't
Yeah.
know many of those people, but some maybe do.
I was like, who?
Right. I think for me, I mean, I've been married now, coming on 19 years. And I'll just tell you, like,
Wow.
when I got married, I was like that water that they get out of the creek where they're like, we're going to have to add some tablets to make this at all drinkable. Like, it's going to kill you unless you do something to clean this up. And
Yeah.
so, hey, guess what? It worked. It took a long
Wow.
time, but it worked. And
Yeah.
so what I would tell you is like, just recognize not everybody's going to show up as like this perfect person, exactly who you want and how you want to be loved. They're going to have to grow into it. And the
Mm.
decision we have to make is just if it's worth waiting. That's really the decision. Is it worth waiting for them to clean it up? Is it worth waiting for me to grow into it? That's the question.
Wow. Because there's this line, that's out there like for women, like you don't want to marry his potential or go after someone's potential. So how does that sort of rub against that? Like, how do you know if you're just sort of wishful thinking with this potential and the person that's actually right in front of you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to me, what I interpret that quote as to mean is I don't want to marry someone's potential character or virtues.
Oh,
those are not potential things I'm willing to consider. Now,
wow.
emotional growth, intimacy, there's some things that like, yeah, you can totally grow on, but I think I don't want to find someone who I go, you know what, they're not a nice person, but I hope they become a nice person.
It's true.
That's
Yeah.
they're a liar and a thief, but I hope they stop. That's
Yeah.
those like the virtues, the character, the principles,
Wow.
those are not good potential things. Those are expectations.
Ooh. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to get out my church notebook in a second. I'm trying to keep it to the side. Um, which then kind of makes me curious about red flags. I love there was something you had on social media about it just almost being so subtle, like especially if you've come out of a breakup or, a failed relationship or what have you. And I find myself, looking back and I was just like, oh, it was kind of like like, oh, you did this thing or you and so like how would you have us or what's maybe a good way that we could recognize maybe a red flag? Because it almost I feel like it's really subtle. Like we're always looking for like and that there is that out there too. But I realized I was saying like certain things when I was journaling in this process of like meeting this person, there were certain things that were just like, that's an orange flag.
Mm.
But but now it wasn't even really that. I think actually it was some character things that, that now that I look back that oh, they weren't truly vibing with me. But what would you say are some like really real red flags and how do we discern that like as well since they can be really subtle sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about the flags is it sure is catchy, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
everybody, oh man, I love a good flag. But here's the problem is like when do you throw a flag on the field? You throw it after something happened. And so we always forget that part, right? Which is that the flag comes out after the thing happened, because then we have clarity about what happened. And so what we do then is we say, well, we should now be able to use that flag to anticipate the next thing. Well, how do you do that exactly when that's not even the nature of flight? So I think the thing is like everything makes sense looking back, right?
Oof.
Because we know now what
Yeah.
we didn't know then. And
Yeah.
so there's some grace we can give ourselves and just say, of course I didn't see that. Of course, why would I
Mm.
have ever seen that? And in fact, sometimes we don't want to be the type of people that see that.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at everyone as a liar
Yeah.
in an
Yeah.
attempt to preserve my heart. That actually is
Yes.
not an improvement for me. I want to
Hmm.
just assume the best in people. So
Yes.
so some of the flag thing is like, well, yeah, you get it in reverse. And then the other thing, and you spoke to it really well, is the red flags are just it's I mean, you could even boil it down to it's the stuff that you go, "Ugh, that thing,
Yeah.
that thing, right? And we all
Yeah.
know what that thing is for us, where
Yeah.
it's sort of like, oh man, should I say something? Should I not? It'd be better if that didn't just happen.
Mhm.
That's a red flag. That's a
Mm.
red flag. And then behaviorally, it's someone who's unwilling to take responsibility. I mean, if you want to look at some of those things, like if someone won't take responsibility, sure, that's a red flag. Because I always say to people, like, how it starts is why it ends, right? And so if it starts and I'm unwilling to take responsibility and I don't have care and concern for others, I know how you'll break up, right? I can predict your breakup story because it'll be the same as how it started. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Okay, I mean, you're already blowing my mind. Like I was saying, I might start crying in the middle of this. I'm trying to not make this my own personal therapy session as well
Okay.
with you. But were you always a guru? Were you always this intuitive?
Always
Um,
this smart. I mean,
yeah,
and also
always.
humble. I mean, I've been both my whole entire life.
Ah,
It's
yeah,
just been great.
yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just gonna say I'm like a guy that's gotten it wrong more times than I've gotten it right. I just tried to document it so I learned something. Like
Wow.
that's really it. And I'll just say I have felt called to do this my whole life. And the benefit of my job is I get collective wisdom, right? So I get to
Mm,
be talking to people about their mistakes. And so now they're not my mistakes, but I get to learn from them. And so it builds over time, and I think too is if I'm really being honest, I've just been inspired by the Bible, and what's true in there is true out here. And so I don't know if I ever
mm,
really say anything original or
yeah.
new. It's just a spin on something that's already been said.
Wow. Yeah, you have such a way of also condensing. Like I love following you on social media as well because all of these concepts and things in relationships and all of these things that can get so heady and just so much and you're able to condense it. It doesn't feel I don't know. It feels so authentic, so real, but it's like boom, so powerful. And I love that you're saying like you have the benefit of this collective wisdom, over the course of, your life as well. And so I didn't get to give our friends like a background on you. And so I'd love to now kind of get into some of your backstory so we can get to know a little bit more about you and kind of what led you to doing the work um, that you do and in the spaces that you're in now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I can just tell you, like, I grew up, as everyone does that becomes an adult, and it was exactly how I dreamt it, and then abruptly not how I expected at all. And so my parents divorced early on, and life just went from super easy to super hard. And so I just embraced that, and I just kind of fell into like this is everybody else's fault. And
Oh,
so I'll just kind of blame them, and I think that'll
yeah.
buy me some time. And so I graduated high school and did the kind of swearing everybody off. And that's all the best movies are the kid leaves high school and comes back
Yes.
successful and
Yes.
buff. And so I was like, you
Yeah.
just wait. But that didn't happen for me, right? I was like, congratulations, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm in debt. I gained a bunch of weight. I'm really unhappy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's my fault. And so for
Wow.
me, what it was is just kind of this realization one day of like, there's a life I've had, and there's a
Mm,
life I want, and there's a gap. And that gap is going to be filled by me or not.
wow.
And even though some of the things that happened to me did not sign up for,
Yeah.
in no way deserved, they
Yeah.
also happened. And
Yeah.
and so what's happened since is just leaning into what can I do with what I have, and then
Hmm.
also what's already been done or what's already been said that I know works. And so being a faith
Ooh.
person, I go, well, actually, I got some great reference. And then how do I find people to teach me how to do it right? So if I don't know how to do it
Okay.
right, how do I be humble enough to say, I don't know how to do it right?
Right. Oof. Which then makes me curious about like community because this is a conversation I've been having with a lot of my friends, even here on the podcast, how difficult community has been in the last decade, but especially like after the pandemic. Men are processing that differently, it seems like, and women are processing that differently. You have this topic in your book, which literally I could just open it up and just like pick any random page because something is like underlined and it's all like ear tagged and all the things. But you have this um concept about silos and like for us as human beings and as people not being silos. How did you like I know you were seeking that out, community and like wise counsel. I think some people are kind of figuring it out like by default, like, oh, I like I need to be around people. Can you explain sort of this idea of silos? And then maybe can you talk a little bit about like how we might step towards community, like just in some really practical ways?
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea of silos is just kind of the standalone, right? So it's standalone, not connected to anything. And I think increasingly what's happened is we've all been hurt. And we've all been hurt in pretty profound ways. And we can compare that hurt, but the gist of it is the hurt's meant a lot to us. And so what we often do when we're hurt is we isolate, right? And then what happens is if we don't have community, nobody comes to get us, and we set up shop, right? And we go, well, this is as good a place as any. I guess I live here now,
Yeah,
right?
I
And
live
then we
here.
wait for someone to come get us, and no one comes and gets us because they're doing the same thing,
Yes.
right? And so it's kind of like what happens then is we sit in our silo and we say, why is no one knocking? Well, because
Yes.
they're in their own, right? And so you have to leave your silo to have community. You have to step out. And people say, and I've been there, but I've been hurt, Jason. And so what if I get hurt again? And I say, you will. You most certainly will.
Wow.
But it'll hurt less than staying alone, because we're not built to be alone. If we were built to be alone, you'd be happy. This would be solved,
Yeah,
right? If that was how it's supposed to be, you wouldn't be
true,
talking about it.
true.
But I think what's happened is that we've really become hyper focused on the fact that we've been wounded and talking about how we've been wounded, but not
Ugh.
how we get healed.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
Oh.
really hard then to say, oh, I actually have to be vulnerable now. Yeah, you get to be vulnerable now.
Uh, I was reading a quote last night. It was like the worst thing for your nervous system are human beings. The best thing for your nervous system are human beings. And I feel like you lay that out so beautifully. It's so annoying though.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. I love to be alone in my pain. But some of the challenges we can fall in love with our suffering if we're not careful. And it becomes
Oh,
this powerful narrative in our life where no one gets me, no one understands. I'm the only one. And I'll just tell you, like working, I do a lot of retreats and workshops. And so literally having worked with thousands of people at this point, every single workshop I do, without fail, someone raises their hand and they give a story and they say, and I'm about to say the struggle that I'm having that I know no one's ever had. And then always, unsurprisingly, 5 other people raise their hand. Right. And the reason is we're not as unique as we'd like to believe.
yeah.
We're different, we're special, but also we share some problems, which is a beautiful, amazing thing because it means we can solve them together.
Mm,
But it's kind of this addiction that we have sometimes to believe we're the only one. And what that
hmm.
leads to is us doing nothing to fix it.
Wow. Yeah, like what helps us to move into action? I mean, is it just simply that decision to just move forward? Because I feel like, again, we could read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, but like what often is that like that step or what kind of gets us over the edge to actually take action?
Yeah, it's just a willingness to tell somebody where you're at. I mean,
Okay.
I hate to make it that simple, but I'm a simple guy. And so what I'm always thinking back to is I'm like, how did people do this before therapy? Somehow the world got here. I don't know how, but like people loved each other and they had friends and like it all worked out.
Had friends.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
there was like adversity, but I mean, they made
Yeah.
it here. And so I just go like, well, what's the easiest thing? Well, tell somebody
Mm,
you trust what's going on.
it's good.
And if they can't help you, tell somebody else. And so what we say sometimes is, well, Jason, I'll try once. I'm going to try one time
Yeah.
and I'm going to pick the person least likely to help me. And then when they don't, I'm going to say, see, this is why I don't try.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go, sure. Yeah, you got
Hmm.
exactly what you thought.
Yeah.
Now ask somebody else.
I love it. It's like such good wisdom. And now bringing it back also to like relationships, like in dating and wanting to still get back out there, but again, like that trepidation of like, okay, this one person I had or this idea I had in mind, or for those our friends that are listening that, have just gone through a divorce, or a long-term relationship. How do you sort of walk someone, through that also? Like again, sharing with someone that they trust, moving forward, like what are some of the things that you invite people into
Yeah,
in
I
that
mean, I think
space?
it's okay to let people earn your trust. I really think it is. We kind of do this all or nothing thing. Like either we
Yep.
overshare or we're guarded.
Yes.
There's like a middle ground there. And so it's
Yeah.
sort of keep the pace of the person you're with. And so if you and I are going to go on a run together and you're running a 5 minute mile and I'm running a 10-minute mile, we're going to have a hard time. And so probably we both agree to meet at some rate that we can
Yeah.
both keep. And so that's the thing in
Ooh.
relationships is like, what's the pace we're keeping and do you want to keep it? And if you don't, that's fine. But you can't go into it and say like, I'm either going to tell them everything or tell them nothing because
Hmm.
that always ends the same way.
Okay. Okay. I'm curious also, can you have like attachment styles are, that's a buzzword right now in all the spaces. Um, and I'd love for you to sort of break down sort of the basic definition of what they are. But I'm curious, do those attachment styles also work with friendships as well?
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yeah, yeah, for
okay.
sure. So attachment styles, there's really initially there was three, but there's four. So attachment style is basically how you related to your caregiver growing up. So think
Okay.
parents for most of us. And so they did some research and it was basically when a parent leaves a room, how does a child behave? Okay. And so from that, some children would be very anxious, right? They'd be like, is the person coming back? Is my parent going to care for me? Okay,
Wow.
well, that's anxious attachment.
Hmm.
Some children wouldn't care at all, right? They would actively just ignore, like, I don't even have a parent. I don't know if they're coming back. Doesn't matter to me. That's avoidant attachment.
Okay.
Some kids would miss their parent, but quickly go back to playing. So they just kind of be like, I'm going to be okay. So that's more secure. And then later, what they developed was disorganized. And so disorganized is anxious and avoidant at the same time. Okay. So it's kind of both and that's often the result of trauma and abuse. Because
Okay.
what it means is that we couldn't really trust our caregiver to keep us safe, but sometimes they did. And so it was very confusing.
Mm,
And so that attachment style plays out everywhere, right? And it's once you see it, you kind of can't unsee it, you know.
yeah.
So I learned, I mean, this has been years ago now when I was going through school and all this stuff. I learned I'm anxiously attached, and
Mhm.
it was like the worst thing ever because I started to look at my whole life, and so something anxiously attached people do is they need a lot of reassurance, right? They're very
Yes.
forgetful people, so they're like,
Yes.
you said
Yes.
you love me, but it's
Yes.
been 13 seconds. Do you still love me?
100%.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I learn I'm actually attached. And I start to look at like, man, at work I'm doing it, at home I'm
Okay.
doing it with my friends. Like I'm always needing to know I'm okay all the
Yeah.
time. And so
Yeah.
yes, it scales into every relationship we have.
Wow. Excuse me. How do we figure out where we are on the spectrum of attachment styles? Like
Yeah.
how do we know that?
There's good quizzes. So if you just Google like attachment quiz, there's a number of them that come up. They're all free. You can do that.
Okay.
But here's a couple of practical things about it. Whatever attachment style you are, just know it can get better, right? So the
Okay.
breakdown is 50% of people are probably securely attached, right? Which is we hate those people because life is easy for them, right? They
Yeah.
have no struggles. They're not
Yeah.
listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just going about their life happy.
Yes.
Okay. We want to be them. They're awesome. And then about 20% are anxiously attached, 20% are avoidantly attached, and 10 are disorganized. Okay.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
the hallmark of anxiously attached, like I said, forgetful, need a lot of reassurance,
Yes.
afraid people are going to leave us.
Yeah.
Avoidantly attached are afraid people are going to get us close and then hurt us. Right. So
Ooh.
they don't want to be rejected. So is going to put some space.
Yeah.
Disorganized is going to kind of alternate depending on the day or week, right? They're going to go, today I'm worried you won't love me. Tomorrow I'm worried you'll hurt me. So
Yes.
they kind of go back and forth. And so just know whatever you are, it's not a life sentence. You can improve
Okay.
it. But what you really want is just some awareness of maybe why some patterns keep happening for you.
Mm. Yeah, because I was trying to think about it again today because I feel like I'm anxiously attached for sure, but then there are these moments where I feel very avoidant uh as well. And so, but I feel definitely I'm much more anxiously attached. So, yeah, how would you maybe suggest someone who knows that going into like a dating relationship in these online dating streets, which are wild? What are some, I don't know, some safe, protective things that I can do just for my heart, just even as a human, as a person, as a woman going into this area of dating?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. I'll tell you this. I mean, I think so if you think about kind of change in three sections or three steps, really the first element to change is awareness, right? So
Hmm.
we're aware there's a problem.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to awareness, sorry, but it's the first step, right?
Wow.
So the
Wow.
first step is, hey, I know there's a problem. Okay.
Okay.
The second step is acceptance and acknowledgement, right?
Okay.
So it's saying, I know there's a problem. I
Mm.
actually acknowledge that. And
Hmm.
I accept that it comes out in these ways. Okay.
Hmm.
So my awareness is I'm anxiously attached. My acceptance acknowledgement is I'm going to probably ask for reassurance to an annoying level if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
kind of fearful about the relation. So it's those kind of
Yes.
truths we need to tell ourselves. And then it's
Okay.
action. What am I
Okay.
doing about it?
Okay.
And so I would just say if you have awareness, awesome, take one more step, right?
Mm,
So if you go, hey, I'm anxiously
it's
attached,
good.
welcome, I want to date. Super cool. That's a great first step.
Yeah.
How does that play out?
Yeah.
And that's how you protect yourself as you say, so I know if I'm
Hmm.
not intentional, I'm going to give my heart away as fast as possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really anxious about it. And I'm going to
Yep.
need a lot of reassurance that I'm okay.
Yeah.
And you go, cool. Okay. Now that I know that, what am I going to do instead?
Mm. Hmm.
So it's not enough to just say, I'm aware of the problem. Like that's easy first step. It's what am I
Hmm.
doing with what I know?
That's so good. Yeah, it feels also just incredibly humbling, also and vulnerable, to put that out. But yeah, I find it, and I know it to be true, but like you were just saying, like some people don't get to the awareness
Mhm.
part, and that's just wild to me as well. But
What part of it is wild to you?
it, because for me, I just think like, do you do we not have some sort of self-awareness, like how I'm showing up or how I'm feeling? Like maybe even not how I'm fully showing up or how someone's showing up, but and excuse me, within the context of talking with grown-ups and adults, that have been alive for 30, 40, 50 years. And I always find I'm just really curious about like, wow, you you don't know this or you're not seeing this aspect. And I know we can't see obviously all aspects of ourselves and we have tons of blind spots. But when I feel like it's something so um vital to a love relationship, saying like, for example, something specific, a lot of the profiles, that I'll see of guys, online, um, that are wanting a long-term relationship. But then there's a lot of things that they're expressing in their profile that is completely contrary to that. And so to me, I'm just kind of like, oh, but you don't see that. You're not aware. To me, that seems, excuse me, to me, that seems wild. Um, yeah. And I mean, yes, I judge it for sure. I'm just like, ugh,
I love it.
my guy. But, but you've given me some language, too.
But don't
Like,
all of us live there? I mean, all of
yeah,
us live there to some extent. I mean, this is probably not good for business to tell you this,
mm,
but I'm always learning about myself.
yeah,
You'd think in
yeah,
my job I would know everything, right? And
yeah.
and I
Don't
just
you?
don't. I just don't. It's like I was talking to a buddy this summer, and I said, I was talking to my wife. We've been married a long time, and she said, Jason, you're the pickiest eater I've ever met. And I'm like, well, that's not nice, And how do you know? Have you met everybody? You haven't met that many people. You're from a small town. It's limited information, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I tell my buddy, and he's like, oh, without a doubt, you're the pickiest eater I've ever met. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, I'm not a picky eater. And he's like,
yeah.
list the foods you'll eat. And I'm like, now
Oh,
that
snap.
wasn't fair.
Yeah,
That wasn't fair.
yeah,
But the point of it is, and it's a funny thing, but it's like we don't know till someone tells us.
yes.
And so when I look at somebody and I go, how are they not aware? I actually go, who hasn't loved them enough to tell them?
Jason.
Because the thing is it requires love and relationship to tell somebody that.
Let me
Who
say that.
hasn't loved somebody enough to tell them you can't want a long-term relationship but behave casually? Who hasn't told them that? Does that make sense?
Yes. I just need to let that sit for a second. Can I just let that
Yeah, you
sit?
can let that
Just
sit.
can
Yeah,
I let it cook, as the kids
you can
say?
let it cook.
Can I
You
let it
can.
cook? Wow. Who didn't love them enough to tell them? Oh my word. Okay. So now I'm curious. I'm always interested in people's love story. Like, I was like, Christians do meet other Christians. People are still getting married to this day. People are getting into great relationships. You've been married for 19 years. I'm curious, what's your origin story with your wife? Like, now that we kind of know that you were a little bit, these are my words, not yours, but a little bit of a hot mess when you met
More than a
her.
little. Yes.
And
Yes.
so I'm curious, because I think we need to, well, I won't say that part yet, but it would be encouraging to me, um, just knowing kind of the landscape of different individuals that I'm meeting, just to kind of consider just another story of wisdom of
Yeah.
how you met.
Well, it was perfect. I mean, we met and it was Disney quality. It was great. No, I mean, we met and it was awesome, and it was awesome enough to get married, to think it was a good idea, right? So, I mean, there was genuine love and passionate connection. But what happened after we got married was not great, right? I mean, what I always kind of tell people is it's like my whole life I'm kind of a car guy, and there's been certain cars that I'm like, oh, I'd love to drive that. And so one of them was like a Ferrari. Wouldn't it be so cool to have a Ferrari? Okay. And so the first time I got to see a Ferrari, my buddy's like, this is a Ferrari. He's like, go ahead and have a seat. I'm like, okay. So I sit down and he's like, well, go ahead and start it up. And there's like 400 buttons in there. And I'm like, well, what button do you hit? And he's like, you don't know? He's like, I thought you wanted this. So he tells me how to start. He's like, okay, well, now you push this. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. He's like, you don't know how to do this? I thought you wanted this. And so that's really the story of my marriage is I met someone and I'm like, she's a Ferrari.
Yeah.
She is totally a Ferrari. No clue what to do after that. Right. I'm used to driving like a Corolla that's got some scratches and dents. right? And so I get in and I'm used to like zip tying the door shut and having to do this and so really the first years of my marriage were like just learning how to do it different than what I'd seen it.
Wow.
And so it was really an unlearning. I would say most of the first part of my marriage was, if you kind of break up my marriage into three sections, the first section was a story of just trying to figure out how not to do the things I'd been taught so I could have a
Mhm.
different marriage. And it wasn't easy. And I think the second chapter for us was hardship. We had a lot of hardship. I talk about it in the book. And so it was like, well,
Mhm.
we had our hard time, that we shared hard time. And then the
Mhm.
third chapter was sort of, oh, we're starting to get some things figured out.
Wow.
Lots of stuff we don't know, but we're
Yeah.
starting to get it worked out a little better. And that's what's gotten us to today.
Wow. You said something about passion and connection, as you were kind of just talking about how you met. And I know that so many of the women that I talk to, and men as well, um, really want sort of that passion and connection. But I know like we're being told like don't just rely on chemistry, just don't rely on
Sure.
that. But like it sounds so silly, but like was it in all equal parts? Was there more passion? Was it just attraction? Like, I'm not trying to make it like an exact science, but this thing about attraction has also been a bit of a buzzword, especially in Christian relationship circles. Um, I also do like this idea. There's another relationship coach, or I don't know how she would sort of describe her, speaker, Allison Armstrong, and she's got some really interesting things to say about relationships. But she talks about some of the science of like if men and women are with their person that they find like a 10 out of 10, it's actually a disservice to them because they sort of operate more out of a primal um, aspect of themselves versus sort of a deeper getting to know, a deeper connection as well.
Mm.
And so there's kind of this conversation going around like just be like relatively attractive or attracted to your person, just go for a five. Just go for a 5 or 6.
Because everybody wants to be called that. Hey, you
You,
know what? You're kind of a five to
you're
me. And so this is, I feel special when people say that. Yeah. Hey,
that's what I'm feeling.
how am I doing as a therapist? You're like a five.
You're
I'm like,
five.
well, thanks. That's awesome. I'll hang that on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, okay, so all that's probably true, and I'm sure the research is there to back it up. But here's what I tell people: go where you feel attractive, go where you're fun, and see if the person likes it. So here's the deal. I am not attractive or fun at Applebee's. Okay. I am weird. I'm sweaty. I'm uncomfortable because it's just kind of not my place. All right.
Yeah.
It's just sort of not my deal.
Yeah.
Right. But there are places that I love, like my coffee shop. Like if I go there, I'm fun, Jason. I'm smiley, Jason. I feel good about myself. So like part of the dating thing is like show them where you feel best and
Mm.
see if they like it instead of trying to be
Ooh.
your best self in a place you don't like. Because that's
Ooh.
kind of what we do, right? It's like, well, let's go on a date. Well, where do you want to go? Oh, probably someplace that neither one of us likes, and let's pretend that we're enjoying ourselves. I mean, sounds like my kind of Friday night, but how do we do that? Right. And so
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if you want to fast track that process,
Hmm.
show them the thing that you feel great about and love and see if they
Hmm.
like it.
Ooh.
And if they don't, cool. Now you know it's easy.
Yeah, I like that. That's very, very practical and makes so much sense. And I'm just
Well, do
thinking
you
of,
think about it? It's like a
yeah,
date. Like, well, I'm going to dress how I don't dress.
yeah,
I'm going to go where I don't go. I'm going
yeah,
to talk like I don't talk, and
yeah,
then I'm going to see what happens.
yeah.
Okay, well, or just be
Horrible.
you at the places you love and see if they
Yeah.
want to come with.
I like that also as a possible, this word, I don't know how I feel about it sometimes, especially right now, but strategy. There's also sort of this relationship word, like women, like you need to like start to have a strategy, not just, especially Christian women, like not just waiting. Um, but this idea of even before, because a lot of women are saying, especially in the church, they're not even being asked out. They're not even getting the dates. But I love this idea of being in the place that you already enjoy. Like I country line dance
Love
and
it.
I feel most alive. I'm happy I do it just for me. Um, I feel most alive in myself when I'm in that space. But I also have this weird rule. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but I don't also want to necessarily date someone. from my country line bar as well, because that's a whole nother high school drama.
I love it.
It really is.
It's a good boundary. Good
Yeah.
boundary to have.
But then I'm just like, I meet so many guys, and they do see me dance, but sometimes I feel like that's very superficial. I mean, there's an attraction there, but it's kind of hard to discern, like, motives, character, all the things, because it is in sort of a bar like setting, if there's a dance floor. But it's just getting me thinking of like the places I still love to be in, like whether it's a coffee shop or a restaurant, or bowling. Do people still do that? Yes,
I
I
think
guess.
they do.
I
Yeah,
think
I
so.
feel special at a bowling alley. I feel
The shoes,
there's no
100%.
judgment. That's not my special place, but it's someone's, and that's all right.
It
And
is.
you get to kind of decide how vulnerable that is to you, right?
Okay.
There are some places that are very impactful to me
Mm.
that I feel special at, but I wouldn't show it on a first date, right? So I kind of just
Mm.
I go like, this is a good place I'm willing to share with somebody, even if it
Okay.
means it's not a fit, and I run into them the next week. And then there's
Oof.
other places where I go, this is just for me, and it's
Yes.
it's a big deal. And so
Yes.
not everybody gets to see that. We have to earn that.
Yes. Wow, so good. How would you maybe help the Christian women and the Christian men that are wanting to date, but again, they're maybe afraid of the apps, because again, I find a lot of people are still afraid of the apps and are not maybe as extroverted. I mean, I don't really even consider myself an extrovert. I'm like an introvert who loves people. And so that kind of plays out differently. But what might you say to these women and men that are just like, how are we going to get a date? And we're talking, grown folks, people that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that have not gone on a date, some ever, which is that's
No
a
pressure,
reality.
right? If
No
you've never gone
pressure.
on a date and you're in your 30s, no pressure for the first one,
No
right? That'll
pressure.
be easy. Yeah. You're not going to
Exactly.
feel rejection at all if it doesn't work out. No, that'll
Ah,
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Here's the thing: people got together without the apps for years. If you're good at them and you like them, awesome, do it.
okay.
That's fair. But what I usually tell people is find a life that you think is really fun, and then talk to people
Mm,
along the way. And that's it. Like that's all you really have to do. Because most of what people do when they approach dating is they act like they have to go like recruit somebody into something. And
yes.
I just want somebody who's doing it anyway, or somebody who appreciates it. And
Yes.
so to me, the best version of dating is like I'm living my 10 out of 10 life and I
Yeah.
meet you along the way. That's
Ooh.
it. And
Yeah.
I just go, oh, hey, this is my 10 out of 10. What's yours? And you're like, well, this is mine. I'm like, oh, we should do that together. Like that's actually how that works. Instead
Hmm.
of building it up into this big thing that we have to be or this way we have to feel. No,
Yeah.
just like find stuff that brings you joy and talk to people. And the talking to
Oh.
people, everyone's like, well, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I don't either. I don't either, right? I mean, I've got a phone. I know it works. I get calls every day, but I never answer them because I don't want to talk on the phone. And yet, the silo thing, back again, how do I meet anybody?
Mm.
You just don't. And so it's sort of like, well, I guess do I want it or not? And if not, that's okay. It's totally okay. But if you do, the reality is you probably got to talk to somebody.
I love that. Do you want it or not? Really though. Like for
Yeah.
real. And because I was thinking about the person that's like, well, I'm already living my 10 out of 10 life, Jason. I've been doing it for 10, 15 years. But I feel like there is sometimes in those cases, even in my case, because I really didn't start dating intentionally, like dating in the last, maybe it's been 4 years, when right before I turned 40. And I just felt so awkward at it, but I was like, we about to do this because your girl is trying to be married. So I'm on the Abraham and Sarah track, apparently. So
That's
here
a
we
good
are.
track. I like that one. Yeah, it's
Okay,
great.
I guess so. But here we are. But the aspect of like, but I still need to talk to men. I, I mean,
I
I want
know.
to marry a dude, so
So,
I
so I mean,
do.
I'm just saying it's probably going to require that. And so what I'll say to somebody is like, so who are the last three people you talked to? And they're like, well, I haven't talked to anybody. And I'm like, oh, so you kind of do like an inbound sales deal where like they come to you. How's that going? Right? Kind of challenging. And so it's sort of like, well, that seems to be how it's going to work. And then the other thing just to kind of note is like if you've gotten too comfortable, you could tell me you're in your 10 out of 10 life, but it's just comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say take one step out of that comfort and then talk
Ooh.
to somebody. Try a new
Ooh.
class, try a new line dancing place, do a
Ooh.
new trip, and then talk to
Yeah.
people.
My Lord. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the same networking event every week with the same people and you go, I can't meet anybody, why no? You know them all.
I
So
mean,
go somewhere new.
oh my goodness. I mean, I've already taken church notes now. It's official. You have me taking church notes. It's
Good.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. Um, wow. This has been so jam-packed full of like I just feel like nutrients for my heart, good wisdom. Good you carry like this dad wisdom too. Like it's great, like this great dad wisdom. Um, I love in the book, and I'll end with this for this part. I'm gonna have another little small section that I'm gonna save for my private Patreon space. And we'll pull something from the book that I'd love for you to expound on because I
Okay.
love this book so much. But I appreciated this through line of music and this particular song and
Hmm.
your journey and relationship with your wife. And this podcast is called Patrice's Playlist. Literally, I didn't think that this podcast would still be in existence. It started during the pandemic, and I was like, sure, I like music. Let's blah, blah, blah. And and it's still going. I'm still having these conversations, which is really fun. But I always ask people, um, what's something impactful on their playlist right now, and if there's a story behind it.
Hmm. Yes. So I would say in the last probably year, so I was raised in many churches where you would never put your hands above your waist unless there was an emergency, right? So if you had to like
Like, wait, what?
wait, like there's a bear coming, like you might do that. Otherwise, you pretty much don't do anything with your hands.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to be in the last year in some worship spaces where people put their hands up and I'm keeping their secret. I'm not telling anybody they did that, but I did see them do it. And I'm just going to say for me, it's been transformational. And so the songs that mean the most to me in this season are the songs where I feel like doing that. And the
Mhm.
reason I listen to them is to lean into that part of me that I closed off for a long time. Because and I'm not here to make a judgment about people who do or don't put their hands up, but I'm just saying for me, my experience, there was a whole part of me that just said, don't feel this too much. And in
Oh,
the last year, I've said, oh, I think I just want to feel all of it. And maybe that looks like weird, dad white guy dancing, but I'm sort of in for it, right? I already got the pants, so I'm in for it. And just every day I'm listening to songs that remind me of that guy who I was for a minute back 6 months ago because I want to be that guy again.
wow. Thank you for sharing that. It makes me think of I was hearing from another podcast, um, a reference to like one of the definitions of the gospel, like good news, like we're used to hearing that, like the good news, but also like some translations is that it's too good to be true
Mm,
news, like too good to be true. And when you said what you just shared, in regards to like I kind of want all of this and like all of this goodness, and I'm kind of in for all of it. It encouraged me just in my faith journey with the Lord because I'm in this space where I'm like an in between Peter and Thomas, as I like to
mm,
say, where I'm super sensory and tactile. I think that's one of the reasons why I've always wanted a partner too. Just like I want a physical expression to express, of your love, God, in a man, and so it's kind of objectifying, the man already from the giddy up. But um, and then I'm also kind of like a thug, a little bit like Peter. I'm just like, I'm ready to take my earrings off. Like, what are you talking about? Like my friend? Like I'm just like, I'm in the mix. But I'm encouraged by Thomas in this season that Jesus doesn't like rebuke. First, he shows Thomas his hands,
mm.
which I think is actually really powerful and profound and super tactile and sensory. And after that, Jesus is like, blessed are those who don't get to see, this, but he shows him his hands. And I was just like, this love goes the extra distance, like this love that we've given our lives to, that we're leaning towards, that marriage gets to be a certain picture of, it's just a reflection. It's not, the full thing. But I think in my walk right now, I've just been like, is this like, can this love be really real, really for real?
Mm.
Can I really lean into this? And can I trust you, God, again, to like lead me to my person? You know, if you have a person for me, which I believe that you do, can I trust you again? Because again, when you kind of come off the heels of 2024 was rough, Jason, and then we kind of go and we started 2025, we're just like, do I just sit? Should I just sit down? Should I just sit down?
I can take a break.
I could
Yeah,
just take a
I'll
break.
sit this one out.
Just
Yeah,
sit
I'm
this
okay.
one out.
Yeah.
I'm okay. And I realized though too, I can't rush my grief. You know, like I said, I wanted to really just kind of push past, but I gave myself even last night, you know, from seeing, you know, the guy's picture and just allowing myself to like feel the feels, cry, and I realized like, oh, I'm still grieving, but God, and I want to believe that you are better than I imagine, whether I get my husband or not, whether I get to go on another great date or not. And so I'm in that place of tension. So as you're sharing, you know, what's on your playlist right now, it kind of hit me in that way. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that because it makes me want to lean into something that I'll
Yeah.
probably kind of,
And
yeah,
I just think, for me at least, I always imagine that, every day God gives me several gifts. And my whole life I've said, well, I'll take that one, but not that one. And so I've just kind of been selective about
yeah,
what it is I'm going to be willing to receive. And
yeah.
so this music helps me to remember that I should just receive it all. And sometimes that gift is not the gift I wanted, right? Sometimes it's something else, or it's a gift of a lesson. And I go, oh, didn't want that one. But I think how I'm trying to show up is just in a place of gratitude and just saying like, but the gifts are there either way. And so
Mm,
the worst thing I think you can do to somebody who gives you a gift is not take it or tell them you'd rather have a different one. And so I'm just trying to say, great, I'll take it because I trust you. And I don't know why I wouldn't, because I'm here today because I trust you.
yeah.
And so I don't do it perfect, or it's not, every day isn't easy. But I just try to say like, oh man, I don't want to be the guy that rejects the gift. That doesn't feel
Oof.
right.
Yeah. Not the guy that rejects the gifts. Thank you, Jesus, for that word. Thank you. I
Mhm.
hear you. Um, well, thank you so much, Jason, for sitting with us, having this conversation, dropping all of your, I'm not going to call you a guru, but all your wisdom, all your nuggets. I so greatly appreciate this time. Is there anything or any word of encouragement that you would want to leave us with while we end this particular conversation?
Yeah, I just say, I mean, I think if I'm me, I'm always cynical and sarcastic. So I think if I'm me and I'm listening to this and I'm single, I go, what does that Jason guy know about anything? Right? I mean, I'm sitting over here, I'm dejected, I've been rejected, I'm not in love. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. I have been you, and even if I haven't, I'm just gonna say, like, the thing is a lot of times the biggest challenge we face is if we're willing to keep trying. And that's the thing, and where our line
Oh,
is. And so if we are committed to continuing to try, it
oh,
will work sometime, because there are things for us. But sometimes the things for us are going to take longer than the time we want to give them.
oof,
And my thought is that makes us appreciate them even more because
yeah,
we know what it's like not to have them.
yes,
I waited 20 some years to meet my wife, and my life would have been so much easier had I met her sooner. But when I met her, I had waited to meet her, and it made it that much more special. And
yeah,
so I don't want to put a happy face on sometimes sad times for people,
yeah,
um, because I know it's sad and I know it's
yeah,
lonely.
yeah,
But I think so often of I got to work with a good friend, and he was single, and so he said, Jason, I spend all my days, I watch Netflix, I go to the gym. He broke it
yeah,
down like this. What
yeah.
I'm as a married person, like, that sounds amazing. What are you talking about? That is so cool. You get to do what? You went to the arcade? Okay, but so he's telling me all of this,
Yeah.
and he goes, I just want to be married. Okay. I just want to be married. I just want to have a wife and a child. Okay. So fast forward, he gets married, of course. Right. And
Yeah.
he comes to me and just not
Yeah.
even thinking, he goes, you know what I'm wishing for, Jason? I just wish I could watch Netflix. I wish I could go to the gym. I would just basically completely the opposite of what he had. And so
Yeah.
there's something about, can you learn to be happy and love where you're at? And if you can, you're going to be fine.
Wow.
And if you can't, you're going to trade a part of yourself to get a thing you won't wait for. And when we do that, we get hurt.
Amen. Okay, was I wrong? Did that conversation not, I mean, you might need to, did you rewind at all? Like, I'm a big sort of rewinder. Do people rewind? But like, do the like 15 seconds back or the 10 seconds back when, because you're like, wait, 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 whoa, whoa. Because he can fit so much in like, and I said this in the conversation, like, he can fit so much wisdom in like a 30-second, like, sound bite and not even just like a, I don't know, what do they call it? Like a clickbaity type. No, it's like hard hitting truth. It's incredible, amazing. Oh, also, Jason did a bonus bit, like a bonus wisdom nugget mic drop. For y'all, my friends that are in my Patreon space, my private Patreon space, which is called Patrice's Bloom Table. There's a whole story why it's called a Bloom Table, but you are welcome to take your seat at this table. And you'll discover more of the story behind that if you join. As well, there's a free tier, and then there is a $5 a month tier. With the paid tier, you get these bonus conversations and nuggets, wisdoms. You can get some wisdoms um, as well each month, whether it's from the conversations, whether I'm creating PDF worksheets or reflection sheets. I love to still incorporate a lot of my training. I'm a certified somatic coach. Somatic means body oriented. I love incorporating that, especially for women of faith. And if I didn't say this already, the space is just for women. So women, you get to let your hair down and just have a space where there's supportive, incredible, authentic, emotionally open women that are ready to champion you. And I'm doing all kinds of fun things and fun little content, not to overwhelm you, but just to give you something extra because the women that are in that space are just intentional about hearing encouragement, growing in love, finding out I do a thing called Patrice Uncut, where you get more of the details of my dating journey, more of the play by play, things that I'm learning. And I always try to give you a takeaway. So I'm not just saying, hey, this is what I'm going through, but I want to invite us into a place of like, well, what are we learning from this? Or what are you gleaning? Or what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And what would you do maybe in the situation? And so I'd love to get your wisdom in the space as well. So just wanted to make sure you knew that. But again, you can get his book, Get Past Your Past. He's as witty and funny in writing as he is like he's got that like really great dry these are his words too, like kind of I think he said it in the conversation, right? That he's like this like snappy sarcasm, but like light, because sometimes some like sarcasm, you're just like, who hurt you? But this is like, yeah, I just get past your past. Page 80, talking about I circled something about how to connect. So this is a teaser for those that have not gotten the book yet. Um, oh, we talked about loneliness on this page. This loneliness is often the result of ongoing efforts to cope with an unmet need, which leads to guilt and shame, making it difficult to connect with others. I'm just gonna leave that in the atmosphere. Oh, let me just read this last one. The minute on page 80 still, the minute I start to talk about what people do instead of being vulnerable and asking for what they need, my listeners begin staring at the floor or start to get restless in their seats. Why do we react like that? And he expounds and goes into that a little bit more. Um, and he talks about how important vulnerability, or the phrase that's kind of going around now at this time, is emotional openness. Um, Emotional openness. Yeah, so definitely if this blessed you in some sort of way, encouraged you, made you curious, made you want to grow, I would encourage you to follow Jason on Instagram. The link to his Instagram is in the show notes as well, but at jason.vanruler. My voice did something at jason.vanruler. Um, yeah, I still have lots to think about and revisit from this conversation. Um, but that conversation that you just heard helped me to heal from being triggered in, like, I wasn't triggered right away when I saw what I saw from the last person I dated, but the residual. And I love how Jason encouraged me and said, like, does healing mean numbness? Like we don't feel anything? Like, what's our definition of healing? And I would go further even to say like wholeness in that specific area. Like I can still be tender or think fondly or think tenderly about whatever, but am I melting and, is there unresolved this, that, and the other? Anyway, I love you. I'm praying for you. And I cannot wait for you to be with me on the next conversation here on Patrice's playlist. What's on my playlist right now? I just got introduced to a song called The Art of Surrender, which has been really impactful for me in this season by Goldford. Have you heard that song? The Art of Surrender. And I know you might think it's like, it's not necessarily a worship song, because we love all genres here, all different types, all flavors. Um, but this is like a soulful song, The Art of Surrender. Maybe you want to look that up as well too. I'll leave a link to that song for you in the show notes. All right, I'll see you later. Thanks for listening, by the way. Okay, bye.